did next, but it's what the information literacy group did next with the definition. We launched it at Lilac last April, so we're about a year and a half on. So it's when we were speaking about it last year, it was really quite new. So I wanted to just update you in what we've been doing since then. So just to remind you about the high-level definition, it is information literacy is the ability to think critically and make balanced judgments about any information we find and use. It empowers us as citizens to develop informed views and engage fully with society. Now, we started this process probably in 2017, maybe. It was around about June, just to give you a wee bit of background. And because information literacy has always kind of been viewed as an academic thing, because I was the public libraries rep on the group, I felt pressure on me that I really should step up and be on the group so that it wasn't just left to be an academic thing. Because I meet in London, they pay for me to attend 2 times a year, but I have to Skype in 2 times a year. So that Skype meeting, I kept saying, yes, I'll do that, yes, I'll do that. And our wonderful vice chair at the time, she said, Jacqueline, you've taken on an awful lot. But I really wanted to be involved in this so that we had the public library voice was heard through there, through the definition. And how long did it take us to come up with those 2 sentences? And we had a whole, I think, at least half an hour, if not maybe even longer. Would we have 2 sentences or 1 sentence? And we tried to make it one, and eventually we just had to give up and say, okay. Because we really wanted it something short and snappy that people could really just reel off. If people say, what is information literacy? They could just reel it off the top of their head. Anyway. So we've got the high-level statement, and then below that we've got the 5 contexts that I'm going to speak a little bit about. But certainly when you think about us being citizens and you see the state of the UK at the moment, and everything that's happening, are we going to have a general election? Are we not? Are we going to have another referendum? Are we not? Will everybody have the access to the right information? Will we not? Will we have another independence referendum, or will we not? We need information and be able to critically assess that information much more than we've ever had to do before. I spotted a tweet from Simon Burnett recently, and it was about the Scottish independence referendum, if there was to be one, but he said, I believe the absolute best thing we could do as a community acting for Scottish independence is to create a reference list which we can share, covering a range of issues like energy, healthcare, etc. And this would help provide a base of hard, irrefutable evidence. So, giving people the basis from which they can make balanced judgments and be empowered as a citizen to fully engage with society. Hello. And that is exactly what he was speaking about. If I can just turn to the first lens, can everybody read that okay at the side? So it's information literacy in everyday life. So this is where I feel partly the public libraries have a role. Digital is part of almost everything that we do now in the world. And in fact, yesterday I attended a digital literacy seminar that the council was running, and it was CLD that were chairing it. But what we were looking at is what is digital literacy, how do we support people with low digital literacy, and how do we identify those people. So in my role as information literacy and learning librarian, I was able to feed in directly to something that is going to become a policy. The one thing they didn't have was information literacy, funnily enough, so I did make the point, because they had functional literacy, health literacy, they had digital literacy, financial literacy, and literacy itself, being able to read and write, but they didn't have information literacy, so I did get my point in at the beginning of the seminar. But whether we're checking information online, looking at a government website, if we're doing our shopping online, booking holidays, children using Snapchat and TikTok and things that Dina are going to be speaking about, we're certainly living our lives very much digitally at the moment. And if you're saying you're students of Dina's, I'm just glad that when I was a student and I worked at Aberdeen City Libraries and I was one of the summer students here, that the photos that we took never made it online, and that they are just still printed out and in folks' albums and hopefully maybe even thrown out. But all of these skills, looking at using social media, what digital footprint are you leaving, thinking about your privacy, all of these things are what public library staff should be either modelling or providing support to develop these skills. So the second lens is information literacy and citizenship. This is where we're sort of starting to get into the murky waters of misinformation and fake news. Well, that's been all over the media. But being able to recognise bias when you're reading something, and possibly if people had a little bit more information literacy when the first referendum was held, then perhaps we might not be in this situation. But being able to make a critical judgment on all the information that we have in front of us. I'm just going to quickly race through these. Information literacy and education. Diane, you were saying that you have an information literacy course that you already teach. And education is probably the most logical space for information literacy. But it doesn't, certainly higher education doesn't have a monopoly on information literacy education. Students tend to struggle to link the skills that they've learned on one assignment and pass them on to the next. And certainly what I've seen, and because I deal with primary children, secondary children up to adults, you can see that they almost can't transfer what they learn in primary school, because then once they start secondary school, it's like, okay, everything I've learned in primary school, that's all done, now I'm on to secondary school. Then they finish secondary school, okay, everything I've learned now, I'm passing on to further or higher education. And this doesn't seem to be any way of transitioning those skills, or they certainly can't make the link. Schools and further education librarians sometimes struggle to show how necessary information literacy is in their pupils' lives, because it hardly features in the national curricula, certainly in England and Wales. We have a schools libraries rep called Sarah Pavey, who's great, and she has been doing a great job analysing the different curricula, and her findings go some way to explaining why students find the transition to higher education so hard. But she has very good news for us in Scotland, because she thinks our curriculum is wonderful, and she from her analysis of the curriculum, she can tell that they've been advised at least by a librarian, which is great. The fourth lens is information literacy in the workplace. I was thinking a lot about this, and I was remembering it was years ago when I was a student, and I did my placement in an oil company. And from my dim and distant memory, I have a memory of signing the Official Secrets Act. And I kept thinking, why on earth would I do that? And I was having a look up why I would have had to do that. So whether they did some work for the government, but certainly I wasn't allowed to pass on any of the information that I was dealing with on a day-to-day basis. But you are looking at the ethics of the company that you're working in. How do you help them achieve their organisational aims? Knowing how and when to use that information. This is all information literacy in the workplace. But the skills that you pick up through information literacy all contribute to your employability. And it's things that you can put on your CV. Okay. And finally, the last lens is information literacy and health. Ruth, I think you mentioned that you deal with health literacy. So when we're making decisions about our healthcare for ourselves or for our family members, if we're finding reliable sources of information for management of health conditions that we might have, any preventative care, or if we've got ageing members of family, information literacy allows us to use credible and reputable healthcare sources when looking for treatment or prognosis. We need to be active partners in our healthcare. So we need to be able to check for good sources, and for the sources that are going to provide us with the right information, so that we can make these decisions, and allows us to engage with an informed dialogue with our healthcare professionals. I think in Scotland we're doing really quite well within this, and we've got the Making It Easier, and that they are really trying. There's lots of techniques that they're using, like the talk-back technique, so the health professional is meant to tell you about your condition and any treatment, and then has to ask you, okay, can you explain this back to me, so that they have an understanding that they know that they have explained it properly to you. Okay. So, what has the new definition, which is starting to age now, what has, do you read that okay on the sound? What has it meant to people from our committee, from the Information Literacy Group? Our chair, Jane Secker, she said, reaching people outside the academic sector and making it clearer that information literacy is not about teaching reference skills to undergraduates, it's about much more than that. And I think having the new definition gives us greater confidence to be doing all the advocacy work with a very clear and broader idea of what information literacy is. Certainly, Jane is on to me, as soon as we get information literacy into the Sun newspaper, we know that we've made it. And I think there was, I'm not sure it was the Sun, but there was something in a tabloid newspaper, and there's like, we've made it. The term information literacy was actually in the newspaper. We have an advocacy officer, he's called Stefan, and he said, I send it out systematically whenever I make a new contact in different settings. So for instance, I pass it on to the DCMS and the DFE officials that we've been engaging with. So I think that the different definition has been great at helping to raise awareness, almost like an extended calling card. So I think before, when you're trying to explain what information literacy was, sometimes it was quite difficult. And I think this is why we came up with the high-level definition, so that it was something on a postcard that you could just hand to people and say, this is what it is. But then we made all the different contexts, because we realised that you can't just succinctly define it in a short couple of sentences, that it needed the context and to fully explain what it was. So, what have we done with the definition?
Okay, we do have a bit of definition of display to do.
No worries.
Yeah. We're just going to put it back to normal, hopefully, because we do have a difference in terms of that.
Yeah. So what have we actually done with the definition? We have engaged with the Department of Culture, Media and Sport, and in particular, recently, Stefan, our advocacy officer, he has been dealing with the group that's looking at disinformation. However, Jane Secker, our chair, and I wrote a blog post for the Libraries Task Force on information literacy and the role of public libraries. And it mentioned specifically the work being done by the CILIC Public and Mobile Libraries Group. And I don't know if any of you managed to go down to their conference that they just had a couple weeks ago. I was speaking at it. It was one of the keynote speakers. But the conference was on information literacy. There are various case studies that I could go through, but there's things such as Newcastle Libraries. They're training their library staff to help people with their privacy. And they've made the materials available, and I used it as a basis of a session for parents of S1 and S2 pupils. And this was before Libraries Online had come out. However, I would have used that had I had access to it. Stefan's also attended 2 DCMS roundtables on digital and media literacy. The group has met with Ofcom, and we've started new lines of dialogue to develop awareness of our agenda and their agenda, and events such as that and LILAC have been included in their monthly media literacy bulletins. We, as a group, have been having meetings with the Department of Education, and they're currently working to examine the national curriculum for information literacy content. So we're looking at areas where we can get involved and ensure that it's real information literacy and not just tokenistic. I know one of the things that we've spoken about quite a lot is getting teaching staff on board with information literacy when they're being trained, rather than just sort of add on their own information literacy, but actually teaching them how to teach information literacy to ensure that it's part of the curriculum. There is a Miss Infocon, I need to say that quite carefully, a Miss Infocon event in London. This started in the US, the organisation, Trust, Verification, Fact-Checking and Beyond. It's a global movement focused on building solutions to online trust, verification, fact-checking and reader experience in the interest of addressing misinformation in all its forms. And we've made contact with or reconnected with other relevant players that are there. So at every one of our meetings, Stefan will give us an update on who he's contacted. But sometimes it's quite difficult to get the message across. So we're speaking about teachers and speaking about reading, writing, arithmetic, the 3 R's and an I. So we're not just talking about the 3 R's, but information literacy skills too. We want people to be able to leave school and to be able to think critically and make balanced judgments about any information they find and use, to be empowered as citizens and to develop informed views and to engage fully with society. And you notice I just re-quoted the definition there. We had 4 people get together, 5. Nick Poole, the CEO of CILIC, Yvonne Morris, Stefan Goldstein, Sarah Pavey and Lisa Jeskins, our Vice Chair, met to discuss the future of information literacy and had a discussion about why it should be mainstreamed. So they came up with 5 reasons to avoid negative outcomes at a global scale and maximise the positive outcomes, to restore faith in democracy. And I don't know anybody who's feeling like they've got any faith in democracy right at this moment. To restore trust and expertise, to avoid social and economic inequality, and because there's a need for factual rather than an emotional response. I've seen more and more on social media, and I don't know if you see the same thing, but people saying, I can disagree with you, but still like you. Just because we don't have the same views doesn't mean I don't like you anymore. Because people are seem to take it, if I've got a different viewpoint from you, that means we can't be friends. So definitely that there's a factual response rather than just this emotional, I don't agree with you, I don't want to have anything to do with you. So what they discussed was embedding information literacy further into the PPSB, looking at library schools via accreditation, public libraries via the public library skills strategy, and looking at school librarians as well. Thinking externally to the sector, they thought that we needed to access the education space in the broadest sense, so formal, informal, lifelong learning, adult, higher education and further education, accessing teachers, the senior learning teams, managers, governors of schools, the Chartered College of Teaching, Ofsted, and a whole host of people that they felt they needed to contact. They talked about some ways that they could possibly access these internal and external stakeholders, and from that was seeking external funding to train school librarians to deliver information literacy and evaluate the impact of this, to seek to build information literacy awareness into QTS training, and still to approach contact at the Department for Education and follow up with the Department for Culture, Media and Sport. Raise the profile of information literacy through the CILIP conference programme and information professional magazine, which we've been trying to do. I don't know if you've noticed any articles by Stefan, which I certainly have, and CILIP have had an information literacy strand in their conference the last few years. Ensure that information literacy is covered in the CILIP School Libraries Group response to the Ofsted consultation. And I think that's one of the things that we do try to do, is to respond to any consultations that we have and always try and get the message of information literacy within there. We also want to engage with the CILIP information literacy groups so that we can see where there are any crossovers and where we can collaborate with other people. Say that again?
I was right about this.
Sorry, I'm not
I was right about this. Do you have slides?
It was just really on that slide, yes. Sorry, it was a lot of information, I realised that, sorry. So what I wanted to do was just have a little discussion. I would have quite liked at this point to show you the updated public library slides on our information literacy group website. I have recently updated them all, and they are in the process of updating from the old information to the new, but it's not quite there yet, so I'm not able to show you that. But what I wanted to ask you is, do any of you use the definition? Have any of you used the definition? Or could you use the definition in your work? And I just wondered if any of you had any ideas of what they might use it for. Because we are also looking for case studies. I have a few things that we have done that I can speak about if people are a bit unsure. So any of you used it in their work or quoted it at all? So if you wanted, there are posters, there's the link to the actual definition of the whole thing, there's little postcards and posters that you can use, so they are part of the presentation, so you can just link to them. So absolutely.
And we share all the presentation afterwards.
Yeah. And thank you very much for your time.
I'm excited to be here and present MADIS online. This is my third presentation so far. Yes. I don't know if you've come across Maddie's online. It is a cartoon educational video we have made. And the idea came from partly from my own research interests in information and digital literacy, but also from my everyday life experiences as my neighbors and friends who have also young children started discussing these issues with me, and I could see and observe the children and what they were doing around me. And I thought, that's a very interesting, what is happening is very interesting. It's a very interesting phenomenon we haven't really examined in any detail so far. So I set off to create something different because I wanted to create something that it would appeal to the interests of the children rather than necessarily to only the teachers. And I wanted to discuss the diverse opportunities, but not only the challenges that are created in the online world for young children. And what is important to say is that this resource has been made for younger children, those that we call as preteens, so before they are teenagers. And typically they can be, this is not a set thing, it can start from 9 up to 12. That's how I have set up the age range. But it's not set because children have different experiences of connectivity and of the digital world. Some of them are more digital, you can say, than others, and also some are more mature than others. So a 9-year-old, a 10-year-old, an 11-year-old may be less, for example, an 11-year-old may be less mature than another 10-year-old. So it doesn't mean that every single 10-year-old is the same. And therefore I thought if I give it a little bit of space there, possibly I could capture this, you can say, category of children I was thinking of. And another reason was that I wanted really to make a statement that libraries, both public and school libraries, should really be directly involved in teaching and helping children to develop their not only information literacy but also digital literacy. And I felt that this should happen in collaboration with all of these different key players. So the primary school, so it would be the beginning of the secondary school, so the teachers, also the librarians, whether those work in a school environment or they work in a public library. And when I first got in touch with some public libraries, they said this is not for us, it's actually for school libraries. So I turned to school libraries and realized that in primary schools in Scotland there were not necessarily school librarians within the schools. And therefore, if there weren't any school librarians, who was going to understand this term, information literacy? Okay, digital literacy is more well understood, but I found that information literacy was really restricted within the library domain. So I felt more emphasis and more collaboration on partnership really was important here. And I was very pleased to see that the resource started becoming quite of interest on the basis of different types of schools. For example, I received an email from the International Association of School Librarians. And suddenly I realized that a lot of schools within the United Arab Emirates were checking Matthies online. Then I received emails from Ukraine, from lots of different areas in Scotland, from West Lothian, Motherwell, and also from the Channel Islands, which was very interesting. But I got a lot of interest from international schools, which I thought it was quite strange as well on its own right. I thought it may have to do with the curriculum. So I started thinking about the curriculum itself as well. And what the people were saying is that initially I thought they would connect this to ICT, information and communication technologies, but people were coming back and saying, no, we want to connect this to personal social health and economic education, so PSHE. It's a subject that deals with how pupils develop the knowledge, skills and attributes they need to keep themselves healthy and safe, prepared for life and for work. So I thought that's really good. And they also mentioned the most vulnerable and disadvantaged children. And I thought, that's great. This is really a place, a subject where this kind of area should fit in. So there are lots of different opportunities then, but it's not always clear within the curriculum where all these issues should be placed, who should teach them, and whether they are formal subjects, I'm talking about information and digital literacy, and how to teach them. And I also was looking at it, I also realized that there is really not much about that is directed at children. There was a lot about, for parents, for example, there was some interesting work that involved setting up a contract between a parent and a child in terms of how to use the internet, how long you should be there, because a lot of parents have concerns with the amount of time children spend online. So I looked at research, and later on I'm going to show you the blog I have prepared where we have all the resources, and we'll have a look at that and see how it can be used. And this is the link to all the video playlists if you're interested to have a look at them. But I looked at research, and before I started doing anything, I started reading the previous research, and a lot of the previous research was focusing on the risks. There was a lot of emphasis on safety and the dangers that are created by the online environment. So you can see all these comments here about this being an addictive form of screen entertainment, that it's going to reduce social interaction, face-to-face interaction, that children are going to be playing too much online games, and also there were concerns that parents had about safety, risk, the fact that children were exposed to so much that they couldn't just relax and just focus on the task, but had to constantly be stimulated by different things. So there was also worries about children creating videos that were, for example, sexually suggestive, because they were copying a lot of the times the people they would see on some of the social media. And really, when I looked at it, there was no real policy to safeguard children, because a lot of the different games and social media tools that they used, apps and so on, although they had a 13 limits in order to join them, there was no real parental control in the sense that you had to ask for authorization always from the parent. And what happens is that the children would set up an account, and then the parent would be fine. They would say, okay, keep it private and you're fine, you just have the network of your friends. And they would occasionally check. But then the children would create 2 and 3 and 4 and 5 accounts. So they would be able to trick their parents and just go and really, have no control, or just be free to post and interact with others online. So parents are worried about all of these things, and some have different mechanisms. Some, for example, would check all the time their children. Some others would trust their children and would feel that they have given them all the direction and guidelines, so they should really know better. So there are different approaches actually in parents and how they deal with that. But at the same time, they're all very worried about it. But most of the research is focusing on the negative. And I think there is a lot that children do that is positive. And what are these things? First of all, they connect and socialize with other children. They play out of school, they connect with them, they discuss issues, they interact. They get inspired, they watch videos of others, and they want to be like them. They want to develop skills that those people have. They develop creativity, they want to showcase their talent. They learn develop technical skills. They build a whole community of interests, they have hobbies. Also, they learn informally, because obviously they check YouTube, they check other things like videos on TikTok and things like that. And I'm going to explain what TikTok is soon if you haven't really come across that. And they explore their interests, and also they seek validation and emotional support. So there is a lot that is positive, not everything is negative, but what do? We focus solely on the negative. And was actually quite surprised when one of my students who researched systematically information literacy and digital literacy in schools down in England, in one of the schools in a socioeconomically deprived area, she found that the person who was responsible for teaching digital literacy to children was actually an ex-policeman. So he was actually policing the children. There was an incident with some inappropriate information going around, and it was this kind of scaring really the people what they should not be doing. This is all good because obviously there are things that we should not be doing online, and there are lots and lots of dangers around for young children. But at the same time, I think as teachers, librarians and parents, we've got to be close to the children to understand why they use all these tools, why they want to connect, and also discuss with them. Because a lot of, if you go and speak to the children, they will tell you a lot of the things they do, and they want to share this information with you actually. So, saying all of that, I wanted to introduce you to some of the key things that children do these days, and there are lots more, of course, but I thought to concentrate on this. For example, you all know Minecraft. I mean, how many of you know Minecraft? Okay, some of you, not all. But this is an online gaming platform where you can connect with others, so you can play together with your friends as well. And it helps you with your creativity. You build things, so you definitely develop skills. There are other things like social media-enabled apps, such as the ones we're going to look at, Snapchat, TikTok, and children say that they feel that they want to be connected, they feel that they need to be plugged in all the time. And also Roblox. Roblox is a very interesting one because it has a number of different games on it. Some of them can be very positive and some of them can be very negative. For example, one of them is teaching you how to become either a policeman or a thief. And if you become a thief, you plant different bombs and they explode and you escape prison. And if you are a policeman, you have to bribe the people or be bribed by them to escape the prison, so things like that. So it's not really always good. But on the other hand side, there are other positive things that they can do, which I'm going to explain soon. So Roblox is the first one I wanted to mention. Anyone knows Roblox? No? Okay, only one, okay. So Roblox is a very complex platform that consists of many different games, and here you can see one of them that is helping you to create a whole sort of a fun fair, a place where you can have different activities. And what you do is you can be a park owner and you build this thing, you build the whole park, and you have customers coming in, so you can work and make virtual money. So you learn about finance, you learn about work and how you make money. Of course, Robux is very easy to be made, it doesn't require you to work for many hours. You can make thousands of Robux, which is the money of Roblox, in say a couple of hours, and then you can buy very fancy cars or build very expensive houses. So on the other hand side, you may wonder what is the expectation of the children who want to have a very luxury place with 3 cars, and one is a very expensive sports car. So I have a couple of videos that have connected to that, but I don't want to play them just now. I'll see how much time we've got in the end, and we can play all of these things in the end. It shows you how children may conceive and understand the games. This is another game, and it's called Welcome to Bloxburg. It's a very interesting game because it is like a real life. You build again houses, and here you can see a Christmas cabin that a child built, and it teaches you life skills. For example, the fact that you may be hungry, you have hygiene needs, so you have to take your character and you have an avatar, a cartoon avatar, a cartoon style avatar. You have to take them to have a shower, to eat, to have fun, and also to sleep. Otherwise, they may collapse. They cannot do the things that they should be doing, and you have to work. And according to some children, working at the pizza place is the most profitable thing to do because you make lots of Robux. So it's a very complicated world, but at this point, a lot of children are hooked on this game and they enjoy playing that very much. But they also interact with each other. They may use at the side Skype to communicate, or they may speak on their phone at the same time as they're playing, and they meet each other online like that. They go to each other person's houses, they get inspired by the things they have, and they may recreate their own house and so on. So it's a very creative game. And I will play some videos towards the end. Snapchat. This you should know, Snapchat, yeah, there's more nodding happening at the moment. So Snapchat is a photo and video sharing app. You know that you send a message and then it disappears after a few seconds. And that's just me in different filters. I thought I'd just have fun and experiment. But privacy is very relative, because although it is for your eyes only, you can just see the message and then it disappears. There's nothing to stop somebody from taking a picture of it. So, although the message disappears, if I receive it, I can just take a picture with my phone and can retain it. So all these things, there are some safety mechanisms, but they can really be other creative solutions that you can overcome them really. And children are very creative, they can do that. And TikTok is one that really worries me most of all the other ones, because it's meant to be for 13 years old and above, and there was an issue about this being available only to 16s actually recently, because you can have quite a lot of inappropriate videos and messages that have to do with people setting on challenges. So one that was very popular was the lip challenge, where you took a little lid from a bottle and you had to suck your lips, and then it became very big, and that resulted in some injuries as well. And there were videos of children actually doing that and posting the videos online, very young children as well. There are other challenges, for example, the one I can show you later, the clothes challenge, that where you learn technical skills really, and you learn how to make yourself appear changing clothes all the time. So children become very, very effective in terms of using the technology, and they can learn a lot about video editing, which I thought is very interesting. But there's a lot of inappropriate content, for example, on self-harm, and some of the challenges can be life-threatening sometimes. Although the dangers we hear are probably, they become more than they actually are sometimes. The settings are set to public by default. Lots of children have the settings to private, but research has found the following things, that parents are still, about a third of parents are still worried about strangers contacting their children. They are worried about the digital well-being of their children. TikTok has a digital well-being feature actually, so it allows you to control the time you spend on it, and so it will appear and it will tell you, if you set it up as a parent. So there are lots of worries, and there's some research that says, for example, that 14% of 9 to 16 years old have seen images that are sexual on the internet. There's other research that harmful user-generated content has been seen by 21% of 11 to 16 years old, but they don't separate the 11 from the 16-year-old. So I found that sometimes the surveys can be quite generic. The study that I find very interesting is the EU Kids Online study, which is a 25-country survey that deals with parental worries, but also how children use these things. But I wanted to mention something which is very interesting from a study that is deriving from a work that is called Hanging Out, Messing Around and Geeking Out by Mizuko Ito and colleagues. There are lots of colleagues in the names who have published this work. But it is an ambitious 3-year ethnographic study that investigates how young people are living and learning with new media in varied contexts, at home, in after-school programs, and in online spaces. And they found the following things. Children like hanging out. So hanging out means socially hanging out online with their friends. That's why they want to connect there. And they also like messing around because they are looking around online for information, or they are tinkering with media in a relatively casual and experimental way. So they become more creative and they develop a more specialized area of knowledge of interest. So, it's very interesting actually that there are these positive things as well. I don't know how I'm doing in terms of time because I like to talk very much, probably not. Half past, okay, we're doing okay, I think. So, there are some frameworks that have been developed, and I wanted to show you this one because I quite like this one. And the reason I like this one is because it's talking more or less about what Vygotsky. Have you come across Vygotsky before if you're an educator? Maybe. Vygotsky talked about the zone of proximal development, which means that children, they can develop some things on their own, but they need a helping hand to develop some other things. And if you're not there to actually support them and help them, they're not going to develop further. So if we take this as a metaphor and we think about the internet, we consider children to be digital native, but they are digital native in terms of how they're handling the technology, the devices and so on. But when it comes to really understanding the deeper issues of technology and actually using technology creative to make new things, there I think they need a little bit more help. They can maybe just, play around with an app, but they don't necessarily know how to take advantage of all the different functionalities and opportunities created by these online tools. So that is a concept that I wanted to explore. The UK Council for Child's Internet Safety has identified a number of key areas that have to do with the digital development of children. Self-image and identity, online relationships, online reputation, online bullying, managing online information, their health and well-being, privacy and security, and copyright and ownership. So these are the areas that consider important when we are considering the topic and when we want to help children develop. Okay, so digital literacy, then it's a quite diverse, holistic term or concept that encompasses all of these different domains, and it's quite complex. And we need a lot of help and support to develop each one of these individual areas. And here I want to show you this one. It's coming again from the same framework, and what they've done is they have separated the different age groups, and the one I'm showing you here is from 7 to 11 years old, because it refers a little bit to the age group we have here, but we also have one from 11 to 14 and from 14 to 18. So this one, the 7 to 11 years old, you can see here that it has a number of different areas. It tells you about what children can do, and these things that they can do are developmental, and they relate to things that they can achieve. For example, I can recognize when somebody is upset, hurt, or angry online. I can describe how to get help for someone that is being bullied online. So they are developmental. They start with a more basic, but then they develop to become more complex when they're helping other people as well, and also when they develop and create more with technology. They can do more advanced things. So from basic to more advanced things. There's no one information literacy or one digital literacy. It's a very, very complex concept that has different stages, you can see, of ability and of knowledge and understanding. So that's really the concept behind that, and I wanted to mention it. So I think I kind of have made this so you can see it a bit more closer. But you can see that it lists behaviors, understanding of concepts as well. Okay. And it involves others as well when it is at that higher level. So it's not only about the self, but about how you interact with others and how you educate others at the same time. So,
it's a kind of mode of living.
Yes.
It's an elevated thinking, intellectual level mode of being and others.
Yes, because it involves others and also it involves different stages in life. So we cannot say that we have mastered information literacy or digital literacy. It's a developmental thing. It's throughout life. And if you think about that, when it comes to how you teach children in education and schools, and what we do at the moment is that we ignore what they do at home, the children. We don't ask the question, what kind of technology have you got at home? What have we using? Nobody's asking these questions. Teachers don't ask a thing. Parents don't know because there's so much technology and there's so many different things that change all the time. It's quite difficult to keep up. So these were the bigger concepts that I wanted to expose you to. Now I would like to introduce you to Maddie's Online, which I have already mentioned. It's an educational cartoon video for 9 to 11-year-olds and aims to illustrate both the dangers of online connectivity, to teach pre-children information and digital and media literacy through animation, but also it shows you really some of the opportunities as well in a way, because you can see that children these days have a lot of sources in terms of where they're getting their information from, and these sources these days are mostly online. So do we know what they do? Do we know what sources they use? It raises these kinds of questions. So it has two different themes. One is safety and cyberbullying, which is series 1. And series 1 is mostly aimed at children because it creates a scenario where Maddie, who is the key character of the series, posts an online video of herself lip-syncing to her favorite music, and then that video gets picked up by another child, and then Maddie gets ridiculed in school. So she gets very upset, and this is how she potentially could deal with this issue. So there are a number of different scenarios where children are asked to choose from. For example, should Maddie ignore the message and carry on? Should she confront the child and respond back to them? Should she go to her mom and ask her what to do? Should he give her phone to her mom? Or go to her mom and ask her to speak to the child? And so there is another one, unfriend and block the child as well. So the children asked to choose a scenario. There is a video associated within each one of the scenarios, and none of the scenarios are leading to any solution, but they create new topics for discussion. A lot of the people that have tried this with teachers and with librarians, so a lot of them say go to mom, obviously, most of them will say go to mom. But I'm trying now to experiment and try it with some schools and the children themselves, because it would be really nice and interesting to see what the children would do. Would they go to their mom? Would they confront the child? And then it becomes a basis for discussion with the children. So you will see that in the blog there are a number of questions and there are a number of activities that you can engage the children in. And you can run this as part of a class that is relating to either ICT, as I mentioned earlier, or safety. We have Internet Safety Week, I think, quite soon, which would be quite nice to link it to something like that, because then you can celebrate like that, as we do here with UNESCO Media and Information Literacy Week. I think it's either in January or February, as you were saying. Yes, okay. So that's another one, and I will show you later the blog if you have time, because I know that usually we don't have a lot of time with me talking too much. Series 2 is a little bit different. It's a longer series, and this is a story. The story begins when Maddie is given a school presentation, and she has to go out and source information for that presentation. But her teacher has asked her to not go to the internet because she wants to challenge all the children, so they should find other sources of information. So the story unfolds when Maddie meets up with the computing assistant, the new computer assistant teacher, who is actually not very nice to her. So she sends her to all these people and places that misinform her. So she sent her to a journalist who is running a dubious newspaper, the Bold Voice. She sent her to a travel agent who just trying to sell her a holiday, because she's trying to find information on a place, on a country. So it's there to release as a metaphor to present the challenges of the children online when they click on a website and they find a sponsored link with a holiday package or something like that, or when they come across fake news and misinformation on the internet. There are some helpful people along the way, very nice, the top class librarian, so the scenario that takes place in a public library. And in the end, the whole thing is solved because what happens is that it is a scenario that twists the story. The new computing class assistant is actually misinformation herself, and the teacher is the character who's trying to trick Maddie. So she's sent to space and she vanishes forever from Earth. But I should say that we are now preparing the third episode, which is going to be on copyright, and Miss Mason comes back from planet Copius to teach everyone the correct copyright rules, and hopefully we'll have the new series ready by spring 2020, hopefully if everything goes well. I should say, I really say that I'm so lucky to have worked on this series with so many talented people, and I'd like to, although all of them, I was impressed how talented everyone is in terms of their acting abilities. I don't think I could have ever acted like that myself. They went above and beyond everything, and I feel very grateful. Two people that I wanted to show you the actual people behind the characters. Miss Mason is Professor Andrienne Muir, and Auntie from the Bold Voice newspaper is Professor Charles Oppenheim. It was very interesting because they wanted to really play those characters, and they, I think because we are all passionate about information literacy and digital literacy, we felt like the characters. So there are lots of other characters as well. Some of them, are children, so we can't always name. And we also have Kerstin McCormick from Glasgow Caledonian University, who is playing the top class librarian, who has pink hair. You probably see her in one of the episodes. Now what I would like to do, and the people who are listening this at home also, they have all the links, so I don't think it's a good idea to actually record the videos for the people at home. But I'll end this presentation and then I'll play a few videos with, I would like to play first the library video, if we have time. Do we have 5 or 10 minutes? Yeah. And then I would like to play the ending video so that you can get a sense of what we're talking about. And if you have time, I may play one TikTok video of the ones that I mentioned earlier, but you do have those links so you can check them yourselves. Is that okay? Yes? Okay. So what I'm going to do then is, actually I forgot about this last slide, very, very quickly, that I've listed a number of areas that I think librarians could be involved, working closer with teachers. And one of them I wanted to emphasize specifically is that work together, because there can be things that you can do in collaboration, and also make more recommendations on this. There are so many different opportunities, and you can see this is the event that I mentioned, and it was February indeed. It was February, you were right, Jacqueline. Safer Internet Day, do something around that in collaboration with schools, with libraries. Parents can be involved. There are lots and lots of ideas of things that can be done. It can make a big difference. If you wanted to use Maddie, of course, I'm available to be booked in a way, because I really want to pilot this resource with a few schools before we can apply for funding and make this more of a research project. But so if you're happy to do that, I would always like to hear from you. Okay, so that's all. Let's go now to watch a little bit of what I promised you. So this is where Maddie is in the library. So she has already started looking for information, and now she thought, oh, I've never been to the library. I'll go to the library. I'm not going to play all of it, but this is when she meets with a librarian. And I think we need we need to actually put some sound on this one. Okay.
Would you like the lights on?
Okay, yes, they have. Thank you. that.
Hi, I'm one of the librarians here. Can I help you with anything? What are you looking for? I saw that you have a copy of an encyclopedia. However, I don't recognise the version. I don't think that's a book from our library, so someone must have left it here.
I'm looking for information on the country.
Okay, no problem. Let's go sit down. We can have a chat about possible sources.
Good idea. Thank you so much.
Always happy to help. That's my job. So tell me more about what you're looking for.
I'm looking for a country called Coyote for a class presentation. My teacher said to find information on its culture and people and present my findings back to the class.
Have you already searched on the internet?
That's the problem. The teacher told us not to search on the internet at all. She wanted to see if we could find information from other sources.
Really? That's very interesting. I've not heard of a teacher doing this before, but it's a brilliant idea.
Well, it's not so brilliant for me. She wanted to challenge us because she said that we usually go on the internet, search up, and then just click the first answer. And it's not always the best one. I find it quite difficult at the moment. It's like going back to the last century. You can't do anything without the internet these days.
Don't worry, I can help you. Come with me to the other section of the library.
Okay, thank you so much.
I should have explained that I'm a roving librarian. Roving means I go around the library with my phone or tablet to help people. So you found me at the right time. Let me check the library catalogue. We have this great mobile app. Let's see.
Oh, that's cool. I thought the librarians were just surrounded by books and liked shushing people.
Oh yes, that's what I was looking for. It's located in section 009. Sorry, you were saying?
No, nothing. That's great. Let's go get it. Phew, I'm so happy I got some help. I don't have much time left for the presentation, you see.
Why would you leave it this late? It can take extra time to find good information and properly check your sources.
I know. Yes, or I think I know. What do you mean by check the source exactly?
Always check the author, the date and the supporting sources. See if you can find the publication date. These checks can give you some useful clues.
That's right. I think the encyclopedia was an older one. I thought the airport had already been built. But once I get the other book in the new edition, I will be fine, won't I?
If you could find where they sourced that information in the first place, you could decide whether it was true or not. So you need to check that it lists other good sources. Encyclopedias should educate people, not mislead them or confuse them.
Yes, I understand this now. The encyclopedia I found had some confusing information about the number of men and women on the island. The maths just didn't add up. These tips are actually really helpful. Thank you. Would a good encyclopedia give me enough information for my class presentation? I wanted to find out more about the culture.
Probably not. You may need to find some more detailed information. You see, an encyclopedia will give you only basic information. Where the place is, current population, the climate, the languages spoken, these types of facts.
Oh, I didn't know that.
So consider what information you need and what would be a helpful source for it. Do you just need some basic facts or do you need more detailed information? For example, the languages people speak is factual information, but the culture can be a more complex topic.
Oh, I know. Tell me about it. I actually found the language difficult too. I didn't get a word in French. And then I wasted my time with Mr. Sherlamond. He wasn't really an expert. The only thing he wanted was to sell my family a holiday.
Who is Mr. Sherlamond?
Oh, that's a long story. What's that? Librarian lady? Librarian lady? Miss Mason, what are you doing here? And where's the librarian?
I saw that the chief librarian suddenly called her away for a job. I just came to let you know that I'm around all day. I'm doing a project for the school and the library, so if you need any help, just let me know.
Oh, okay. Thanks, Miss Mason. The librarian said that I needed to get the new version of an encyclopedia. Do you have any idea of where I could find it?
What's the title?
I don't know, but the other one I found was a blue book. Does that help to find it?
No, sorry, I'm not sure. I've only seen the one that you were reading earlier as I was going to the internet room. I waved, but you didn't see me.
Oh, sorry. I must have been very focused on my reading.
I was actually going to tell you about another idea I had, but you seemed to be happy reading that book.
What was that?
I had an idea about who else you could ask for your presentation. I have seen this group of teenagers who have set up a geography community. They like doing research and putting together information in different areas.
Okay, thanks, Miss Vincent. It sounds interesting. But will they know about Coyote? I don't want to waste my time.
I think that they will. You can find them at the Lime Street Community Centre, just next to the school. You know as you go out and you cross the road to the left?
Oh, I know where that is, as my mum goes to a Swedish exercise class there. Is it the building with the big glass door?
Yeah, that's it. I think that the community group is meeting up this afternoon. Just ask at the reception, okay?
Okay, I will. Thanks.
You're welcome, Maddie. Always happy to help. I've got to go now, but I'm going to be in the internet room later. Let me know if you need me, alright? Bye for now, Maddie.
That was a little strange again. The moment I turned my head, the librarian disappeared. At least I learned some useful things. I may put them in useful now. The librarian said, check the source. Check the date. Check the author. And check. I forgot. Never mind. It's actually getting kind of late now. My mom's gonna be so worried. I better tell her first. And then off to the community group.
Okay, that was it. So it was a little bit long. Okay, so I won't play anymore because I think I was quite long, but you get a sense of, I mean, it has a scenario, so a lot of the things that you heard were not always, you cannot understand this one. Are we past the time? No, we're fine, okay. So now I would like to show you a little bit of the blog as well, if you don't mind. If I can find how to get out of here, because it's not always easy. Yeah, because I cannot see, there, I think I found it. All right, so going back to the presentation. So on the blog, so this is the blog, and it has all the episodes. Actually, they are here, but we cannot see them because of the view that we have. It's unfortunately we have this. Do this. So, so you have your page, the pages here, but also if you scroll down, you can actually see all of them. You have the playlists here, so you can see all of them if you need. You have your archive, and I'm adding new things as we, go along. But maybe just refresh it for now. But so you can find all the information on Series 2 here. And what you can see, Series 2 is the one about the misinformation, and what is, you can see here that it tells you about the story, what happens, and then you have instructions. So the instructions are in terms of what the children could do and how the videos could be played. And also it has questions around each one of the different scenarios that we have there. So what you want to ask the children after you played each one of the scenario. And we also have resources. There is an episode with Mrs. Canavera, who is a science teacher, and Maddie doesn't understand any of the things that she says. So at some point she gets, because she's a website, Miss Canavera, and she loses connection or something like that, and then she starts saying weird things to Maddie. She's actually probably also been hijacked by another website. Anyway, so she gives wrong information about some animals on the island, and then you can connect them to things like these drop bears, which is a myth in Australia about an animal that is called the drop bear, and that it drops on the shoulders of tourists because they don't like tourists. So, and it's quite interesting because it can be presented as a real thing. In the Australian Geographic. It was actually April's Fool Day, so they published this for a joke, to make a laugh. And so it has these kinds of things that you can connect them to things that, are published and deal with fake news and things like that. The last episode features the IFLA fake news diagram. I don't know if you've come across this one before. Of course, it's very well known. So Marty ends the episode with going through some of the key elements of the IFLA infographic, because he goes in the end and presents this to the teachers and in terms of what he's learned and so on. So you can watch this episode if you're interested in. This is quite long, so I would recommend that you play that maybe in a series of days, or as you have maybe an episode every week over a period of time, or you can have a few episodes and then ask the children to do an activity, come back with the information and discuss it. There's definitely a lot of discussion around each one of the episodes. For example, the community center episode, there Maddie meets with Betty, who is very helpful, and she's telling her about critical information evaluation, that there are two sides of the story, and the whole story revolves around the use of the build of the wind farm on this island. It's actually an island. It's not really a country, and what they've done is they built new wind farms, and these wind farms have created a lot of dissatisfaction and unhappiness with some people. But then as the scenario unfolds, Maddie realizes that it was mainly the hotel owners that didn't want the wind farms. It wasn't actually all the people and so on. So it's about critical evaluation as well. I think I will just leave you with that final thoughts. There's a lot of material that comes with Maddie's online, and there is a lot of flexibility in terms of what actually you can do and how you can engage children with different parts of the series and with different episodes. But as I said, I'm here if you wanted a helping hand and somebody to be at the site and to give you a few ideas. In addition to the ones that are listed on the blog, I would always be happy to come around and have a chat with you and kind of move this forward. So that was my presentation for today. I think we ran out of time to show you the TikTok videos, but there are lots of them, and they show you how children create things and also some of the dangers online. So I think that you can maybe review them when you have some free time on your own. Okay, so thank you very much. That was really all from me. Do we have time for questions? Maybe not. It's almost 5 o'clock. So we do maybe 5 minutes maximum for questions. It's long. Okay. It's already 5 o'clock. Okay. So thank you very much. Appreciate your coming here. I hope it was helpful. Okay. See you again next year.